It is lovely to talk with you today, Sophie Cowling,
My pleasure.
who and you're now a senior scientist at Freshwater Biological Association. Just started there, focusing on citizen science. But you previously worked for Earthwatch on their Tiny Forest project, and as a scientific advisor for Plantlife International, and advisor on environmental data analysis for Natural Resources Wales. So you've done really quite a number of different things. But how on earth did you get into plants?
Plants are it's a weird and wonderful story, and mostly down to fantastic university lecturers. So I've always had an interest in the natural world. It's always been a passion of mine, and I remember from a really young age my mum loving gardening and being that surly teenager, kind of being slightly embarrassed about the fact that she used to speak to her plants, and now as a gardener myself, I completely get it, and it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. And I wish I'd appreciated it more at the time, but I think that sowed a seed. But I kind of viewed myself as generally more, when I went back to university at 26. So I had a previous career, and I went back to university, started at the University of Leicester when I was 20, actually when I was 27. And we had this amazing female lecturer called Sinead Dreer. She used to work on transcriptomics in plants, but she was just so hugely enthusiastic about plants and their space in the world and the amazing things they did, both from sort of genetic model organism, but also for their role in ecosystem function, that I moved from kind of a zoological interest, which is what my degree was originally in, much more immediately within the first year of my undergraduate, focusing on plants. It's like, these are amazing, they're underappreciated, understudied, and from there onwards it was just always about plants. And that's that was supported by, within the first year at university, I applied to the Gatsby Foundation Summer School. I attended the Gatsby Summer School, which kind of really cemented that interest and the role of plants within research, which wasn't something that really before Sinead and before the Gatsby, I really hadn't appreciated them, both from sort of the research on them as, an anthropogenic tool. So for both from building, medicine, etc., but also from an ecological perspective of them forming a foundation of ecosystems. And then it
So,
just carried on.
I mean, you said that you were the first in your family to go to university,
Yeah.
and so how was that for you? That sort of transition?
Yeah, it was quite hard. And I think I will, anybody that will listen that comes from maybe a sort of a less academically supported background, I do want to try and give them help and support wherever I can, because I wish I knew when I was a teenager and when I first started my undergraduate what I know now. So not only was I the first person in my family to go to university, but I come from a very despite how I speak, I've got quite a good accent. I was brought up on a rough council estate. I come from a very socially, economically deprived background. I lived by myself since I was 16. I went to one of the worst schools in Leicester. So there was really no space for understanding the opportunities that existed within academia as a career, and science and scientific research, but also within the environmental sector. So I was always very interested in nature, ecologies, documentaries, books on nature. But to me, that was just, okay, that's biological sciences. So therefore, that's what I did as my degree, for example. And when I was younger, it's like I wanted to be a vet because that was the only way I could put the two together. So I think, yeah, there needs to be more for people that maybe come from a more deprived background. You need to understand there is a lot of opportunity within the environmental sector, not just within conservation, but other job opportunities. And the same, like university was fine, but again, I just was a bit unaware of some of the opportunities, and I definitely suffered from imposter syndrome and not knowing, and that's taken quite a while to shift, because you can see the advantage that some people have from having a previously academic family and the support they get. So it was tough, but also you learn a lot, you learn about yourself. And I think my best advice I can give to somebody that maybe comes from a background without knowing opportunities is just follow their passion, and go and seek and knock on doors, ask questions, knock on doors, seek opportunities, follow your passion, don't try and be too sensible. So yeah, that's something I've learned along the way.
And you've worked for quite a number of environmental organisations like Earthwatch and now the Freshwater Biological Association. What's it like working for that sort of an organisation?
It's genuinely wonderful. Like it's there's always a compromise to working within the environmental sector. I chose to step away from this despite having a really interesting PhD and having it's very successful, being offered postdocs. I recognized that I wanted my career to be working on something more directly applicable to environmental restoration and protection of the natural world. So I chose to step away from academia and into the environmental sector. And that was for that reason, but it was also for work-life balance. I wanted to be able to live where I wanted to live. And I also wanted to just have a bit better work-life balance and have more normal working hours. So in that sense, it has a much better work-life balance, but there is a compromise of, you will get paid a little bit less in the environmental sector, but also the benefits that come with it, not just for work-life balance, but also your colleagues are just the most wonderful people I've ever worked with. The people in the environmental sector are just generally almost ubiquitously warm, friendly, kind, empowered and psyched about preserving the natural world. And it really is just one of the best field of people, and it gives you great hope about the fact that the world is not completely screwed. These people really care, and we're doing everything we can to help.
That's really nice to hear. So one of your specialities is data analysis. It's one of your strengths, and it's something that a lot of biological scientists shy away from. Can you give an idea about why engaging with data is so important?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was a victim of this myself. I just decided not to take an ecology PhD because I was so aware of how much data analysis and modelling and R use is in ecology. You do a lot of field work and then you spend the rest of the year doing a lot of data crunching. And I didn't want that. I didn't think I was mathsy. I didn't think I was good at stats. We had very horrific lectures on base R when I was doing my undergraduate, which I think scared me away. And so I took a kind of what I thought was more translational PhD in sort of crop sustainability. And actually, I spent the vast majority of my PhD doing genomic modelling in R. and honestly, it was the best thing. Really has supported every single job role that I've been in. And it was hard because I was the only person in my research group that knew how to use R. The only person taught myself. But actually taking that step to becoming more comfortable with, it doesn't just have to be R, there are other software out there, but R within the kind of biological and statistical sphere really is the gold standard. If you can force yourself to get over that initial hurdle, you realize it's actually an incredible tool and not always easy to work with, but there's always a lot of help out there. And it really has underpinned every single role that I've got. So the job at Natural Resources Wales, when I was trying to step away from crop sustainability into the environmental sector, that is what got me that step. So in NRW, I specifically was working in R as a data specialist from my skills acquired during the PhD. Plantlife, I didn't use R, but I have had people from Plantlife since contact me for doing consultancy work on data analysis because they knew about my skills. So I've worked with the Woodland Trust, for example, on their rapid rainforest assessment data. When I worked at Earthwatch as the research manager, I underpinned, I was doing all the analysis on the citizen science data, so our coding skills and understanding good data analysis. That's the difference. It's not just about being able to do data analysis. It's being able to understand what you can get out of your data, because there is so much more than you can do than summary statistics and an ANOVA. You can make much bigger things out of your data set and understand more about what's happening. So it's those things I really would, it's tough, it's a bit scary, but please do push yourself to kind of understand good statistical analysis. And if you can, put yourself through learning R and Python. ChatGPT nowadays is an amazing tool that makes your life a lot easier. So, and the same, my current job now, I'm about to do some analyses on sort of water chemistry for the Water Framework Directive. So on the data in Windermere. So it really does underpin every job I do, and it's part of the reason I have got some of those jobs. So
So that's a really good thing to know, that
yeah,
it is worth getting to grips with.
it really does pay off. It does. And you actually just feel very empowered by it. And it just makes, honestly, as a scientist, it's more fun because you can look at a data set and like really get into it, understand what's going on in the system, and also feel like what you're doing is robust or not robust, and know that you need to do some more work in your experimental design or etc. etc. So understanding your data gives you a lot, both professionally and experimentally.
So to wrap this up, Sophie Cowling, what is your favourite plant?
Oh, it's there's too many to choose from, but really niche. I would probably select the sundew group. I can't narrow down on one, but the sundew group of plants. So for those that don't know, the kind of wetland carnivorous plants that are this beautiful hue of red with like tantalizing droplets on the end of their tendrils. And that's because I'm a mountain freak. So I spend a lot of my time hiking and climbing. And I really respect these little plants. You can only kind of find them in these upland, well, not upland, but these kind of wet, very, very natural areas. And they need to be areas that are quite undisturbed, not improved. And also, they're really hard to cultivate. So I kind of appreciate them for being wild and out there and self sufficient. They catch their own food.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.